Hey guys, what's up? Misha from GGD here, and today I'm going to show you our brand new Smash and Grab 2.0. That's right, we have updated it with a whole set of pro features, and it's really opened up the usability of this plugin. It used to be something that was really just focused around drums and making it very easy to get good drum sounds, and you still get that, but now it can be used for just about everything else. And I'm going to show you how I've replaced literally every compressor in my project with it, and very happily so now that I have access to the pro features. Just before I start, in case you're wondering, if you already own the plugin, you get a free update, so that's great. And if you've been thinking about getting it, well, now might be a good time, because for the same price you're getting so much more functionality. All right, let's dive right into this. So why don't we listen to a little clip that I prepared just for this. All right, there you have it. So, as you can see, I am using our P4 kit. I'm doing something which maybe I should do another video on at some point, but I'm actually layering this with just the kick and snare from Modern and Massive, just to layer with this kick and snare. They're kind of soft, as you can hear, but they add something. I have those just going to the same channels, so it's I'm treating it in my my sum channels here as if it were one sample. But anyways, we're not focusing too much on that today. Just wanted to show you kind of the setup that I'm using, just in case you were curious. So these are the settings that I have here, just in case you want to copy these for yourself. So you can screenshot this and just use it as I have. I like these a lot. I'll be running through the channels right now so that you can see how I have Smash and Grab set up. So interestingly enough, for the drum sections and the drum pieces, I'm just using normal mode, and I think that's totally fine. We dialed this in to be really good for drums, so there's no need to overcomplicate it. Obviously, if you have the settings that you like, you can always go into pro mode and you can adjust that for yourself. But I really like the way that this is dialed in for drums, and with our drum type selector, it's just very easy to get a good sound. So for kick, you know, there's nothing too dramatic going on, but really all I have is I'm aiming for about -3 gain reduction, adding just a touch of beef. You don't really need too much of these controls. And the one thing I love, you're gonna see I go nuts with saturation. I don't use too much of it, like, yeah, about 15% here. But I do feel like it just gives it this warmth in the mix, and it kind of gives it this nice low end in the mix. Can never have too much saturation. Well, actually, I know a lot of people who disagree with me on that, but I really like it. So looking at the next element, Now the snare compression on the snare is super important. You know, I have everything summed, so I have my snare top and bottom, but I like to compress them as if they're one. So that's without it. Obviously, it's still going through the rest of the chain, but if we were to just listen. So we're going, I'm going pretty nuts on this. You see that's -10. I'm in extreme mode here. I'm in the grab. So grab, just so you know, is a VCA style compressor. So you can set it to be, as its name suggests, a bit more grabby, and it's not trying to smash the transient. You'll maintain the transient, but I am setting it pretty hard so that the sustain gets sort of emphasized. Again, it's nothing too dramatic here, just bringing the threshold down until I hit, between 7 to 10 gain reduction. Got a little bit of beef for the snare drum. It's a higher tuned snare drum, and this is a really useful tool just to add a little bit more low end back in. A little bit of air just to make it cut. And again, just using a touch of saturation, it just sort of activates the circuit, tape saturation. I'm in extreme mode for this. So this is all stuff I've pretty much covered before when I've gone over how I use smash and grab in a mix, but let's might as well just keep going and looking at some of these. There's unfortunately not a whole lot of toms in this, but here I'm just basically without it. You can hear it's more like papery, and I'm creating sustain. I'm adding a bit of beef and a bit of saturation, so it just makes it cut a little better in the mix. Without. It's all very small differences that all add up, right? Overheads, again, just trying to glue the cymbals together. So overhead mode, just aiming for just a tiny little bit of reduction. It's not really going past 3. It's just gluing the cymbals together. It's kind of bringing them all to the same level if need be. You know, just taking a little bit of low end out, adding a little bit of air in there. And again, this is dialed in well for overhead, so I can just leave it there. So most of these we're gonna leave in grab mode because I'm not trying to crush stuff until we get to the rooms. And then here, I want to smash my rooms. I always talk about how I love to smash my room sound. And the reason is because it just, so this drum sound is it's actually a great room sound, but we can enhance the sustain. We can make the sustain a lot more impactful and have the room sound kind of play with your drum sound that actually cuts through. So without it, it's a very clean and it's a very pretty room sound, but with it, it's just giving the whole thing a lot more sustain. So you can see, like, here I'm in pro mode, and here we have our controls. Now, one thing that the smash mode, which is a FET style compressor, is the attack is incredibly fast. So it may look like I'm actually running it pretty high, but as you can see, it's at half of a millisecond right now. And that I'm just dialing in by ear. I want it to sort of I mean, it's not going to make a massive difference on all these transients, because in any case, it's so fast, it is crushing whatever transient you have. So that's what I kind of like about it. I'm also running at 20-to-1, which is, you know, an insanely high ratio with a hard knee. I have saturation going on because, again, I want my rooms to be kind of dirty. And, you know, I pulled the threshold way back just to get that. I think I got a little bit of beef. And here you can set the actual frequencies that the beef operates at, and the same thing for the air. So we're just kind of, we're going to reduce a little bit. Yeah, I don't mind my my rooms having a little bit of kick to them, you know? Yeah, just a little bit of saturation. You can really crush it if you want, but I think just a subtle amount's always is good. It adds up in the mix, you know? So for that, like, I'm actually favoring pro mode, just because I like to do something kind of specific to my rooms. The normal mode works really well, and that's what I was using, but since I have the opportunity, might as well personalize it. You can obviously do this. for any aspect of this. And now I've got my drum bus here. So for the drum bus, again, I've got it in grab mode. I really just think of this as something that's supposed to glue everything together. It's just gluing the whole drum. So when you want to smash, or when you want to kind of destroy transients and do something that's very impactful and sounds like compression, you generally want to be in smash mode. If you want to kind of glue things together and you want things to sound more cohesive and like they're in the same plane of existence, throw grab on it, because it just acts as glue. So as you can see, I'm using very conservative settings here. 2 to 1, you know, we're just about hitting -1 on gain reduction. I'm using this opportunity to, you know, get a little bit of air. The beef and air controls are just great to have. They're super powerful, and I use them, as you can see, pretty sparingly, but it does add something to it, which I like. We have saturation off. I mean, this would be a part where if you wanted a bit of a dirtier drum sound, you could always add saturation. I mean, obviously not that much, but I'm gonna leave it because I want this to be nice and punchy. I'm gonna leave that off. And then for the guitars, so this is interesting. I don't always love compression on guitars, especially rhythms, but again, I want to just kind of glue all the guitars together. So on this rhythm part, I almost want it out of the way on this part. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to sort of bring that lead guitar, that ambient lead guitar in, and, you know, have it interact with the rhythms. And then on this part here, I just wanted to just work a little bit, and it's barely working there. But it's just supposed to glue everything together. That's one that you can do to taste. Sometimes you'll do it, sometimes you won't. But the thing I like is that it's not really affecting the tone. And if it is, it's not doing it in a negative way, so I'm leaving it on there. Moving on to bass, I have it here. Now here I have it in smash mode because I actually don't mind losing transient. I don't need my bass to actually have transient. I just want it to be like kind of a brick wall of sound, right? So off. And it's just adding a little bit to make it just sound full all the time. Adding a little bit of saturation, tiny little bit of beef, removing some of the air. We're at 4 to 1. Again, we're not going absolutely crazy on this. And I have my attack set very low because I don't care about the transients. You know, I want this to be compressing pretty much all the time. So I like that for the bass like that. This is doing the bus. That's kind of a bass sound. It sounds kind of whack on its own, but you know, in the mix it actually works. And I wanted that to just sort of sound almost like sub bass, almost like synth bass or something like that. Oops, wrong one. But as you can see, it's working nicely there. And then let's look at the synths. So synths are great, but they can really eat up a lot of your mix. So there's two things that we should look at this. Let's look at the actual synth track first. Again, going with the tape saturation, it makes it less clean, but it just makes it sit in the mix, which in a way I kind of like. It just makes it occupy the space, which I like. Taking a little bit of the air out. And again, with the synths, I don't really care for transient. Some of these have like hard transients, so we're gonna smash these. And you can hear some of the soft clipping going on right now with the saturation. Again, you could take that or leave it. I kind of like it. Again, attack and release set very fast on this. And we have the piano and the strings also going to this as well. And it might sound kind of harsh, but in the mix, If you want something less intense, you can always just switch it to grab mode. But I don't know, I kind of like what this is doing to, I kind of like the character that the Smash side is giving it. Let's move on to parallel compression. I've done a whole video on this, but, you know, might as well quickly cover that. So this, again, needs to be smashed, you know? We're just going to listen to what it's actually doing. Don't care about transients. Parallel compression is about creating sustain. So we're in extreme mode, you know, we're adding a little bit of tape saturation. We're in parallel mode here. Again, I'm just relying on the parallel compression mode because honestly, this is dialed in so well that you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So just kind of set it to parallel mode and crank it, right? And then one other thing which I'm kind of messing with, which I'm liking. So I always have a reverb send for this. It's exclusively for the snare, using QL spaces. I really like this drum sound. But the one thing is, I was wondering what it would sound like if I just gave it a bit more sustain, right? So without it, that's what it sounds like, and with it. So it's going pretty heavy smash mode, as you can see, 10 to 1. You know, we're getting, yeah, like almost 10 dB of gain reduction, adding a little beef, removing a little bit of air, and adding some saturation. I kind of like what it's doing, you know? It's all about little moves. So I feel like especially on this section, you get to hear a lot more of that snare. You hear when you put that in, like how much. So that's how I'm kind of playing around with. I like that. And that could be a cool thing to automate off. If you ever want a more intimate section, you don't need that much. You could automate that off and then kind of leave the reverb on. So that's how I'm playing around here. And also just for fun, I didn't really think I was going to do this because I've been kind of married to my FG Gray, the SSL Slate bus compressor. But I was kind of curious because that's a VCA compressor. So like if we set this in VCA mode, grab mode, and you know, I use similar settings, what would it sound like? And we didn't really design this to be a 2-bus compressor, but it kind of works really well. So this is it. This is what I use on basically every mix ever, which is the Slate VBC Gray. And then this is smash and grab as a bus compressor. And you actually get quite a few more controls, like using the saturation. Or you could just have it off if you don't want to do that, but I'm adding some beef and air here as well. I have the attack set very fast. And the other thing I have is I'm actually using the sidechain, not the external sidechain, but the internal sidechain so basically this means that it's ignoring all frequencies under 126 hertz so that the kick isn't really triggering. You can see it's like mainly the snare that's activating. I'm usually aiming for about -3 on a bus compressor, but yeah, it's kind of working very similar, and it works really well. I mean, so we could just leave that on, but I thought that was kind of interesting because honestly, I hadn't even really planned on doing this for the video, and this wasn't really the goal with this compressor, but it's kind of working really well. And I honestly do love FG Gray. I've been using it for years. I've found it really hard to use anything else. But if you don't have that and you have smash and grab, I mean, it's turning out to be an absolutely fantastic 2-bus compressor. So I really can't complain. It's got a slightly different character, but man, it's really, really good actually. So that was a pleasant surprise. The last thing I was going to show you guys was a cool little trick. Maybe you guys don't know about this, and we could talk about this more in depth in another video if you want. But one thing that I've got going is I'm actually sidechaining the what am I sidechaining? I think I'm sidechaining the strings in the piano to the kick. So I'm doing this so that it basically ducks. So I have smash and grab set to react to the kick. And I'll see if I can show you how this works. Let's do it with the piano. That might be here. Let's turn the saturation off for now so it's not distracting. I've got the external side chains up. Now in every DAW it's a little bit different, but in Cubase you basically just say what you want to send to this, right? So rather than just reading the signal itself, this is reacting to my kick channel, right? And I'm just, you can add whatever channel you want. I'm having it react to the kick, right? So you'll see whenever the kick hits, that's when it starts to duck. And obviously the threshold will affect that. You can have very drastic settings. The attack and the release will affect how fast it works and whatnot. So that's something you dial to taste. And I've got a little bit of, you can also adjust the flavor of the beef and air. But it's kind of a cool trick so that you have these layers that are occupying maybe similar space or just occupying space in the mix in general, and they basically duck whenever you have whatever you sidechain it to. So in this case, the kick, which is occupying a bit of space. You could do it to the snare as well. And I don't know if the difference will be super obvious if I turn it off, but let's see if you guys can hear what's going on here. So they're just kind of on top of one another. And now you can hear that it's actually ducking a little bit. And although on its own it may not sound good, or it may actually sound worse on its own, what it's doing is creating space. So for that split second, the kick actually can take up that much more space in the mix. So it's cool little tricks like that that are useful for some more advanced mixing techniques. But it's a great way to create space, especially with two things that occupy a lot of the same space. You could do the same thing. Sometimes people do it with the kick drum and the bass because they occupy a lot of the same frequencies. And if you were to do that, all you'd have to do is expand this. You do external sidechain, so it knows it's looking. In Cubase, you have to turn this on, add sidechain input, and then we will do kick sum. So now it's going to be reading that. And as you can see, it's now ducking for every kit. And that actually doesn't sound bad, so I might just leave that there, Anyways, I hope that this has been educational. I hope that you guys learned some new things about smash and grab and how you can use it all over the mix. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.